Welcome to my unfinished studio. Hey YouTube, so today I have something incredibly exciting to share with you guys. As many of you know, I wrote a book, The ABCs of LGBT+, which comes out October 25th, but is available for pre-order right now, links below. And some of you might be curious regarding what the book covers and what kinds of concepts it unpacks and explores, so I just figured I'll read you some of it. And in doing so, I'll spotlight some of the wonderful voices besides my own that are featured in the book. I'll probably do a couple videos like this, and today's is going to be all about pronouns. So what are pronouns? Well, according to the ABCs of LGBT, pronouns are words used to refer to nouns when not specifically using a noun's proper name. I'm sure all of you are familiar with some pronouns like he, she, it, them, they, that. Fun fact about pronouns though, many languages around the world have this thing called grammatical gender. Grammatical gender is simply a noun class system. It divides nouns into different groups and provides a system of agreement between them and other kinds of words, like articles, verbs, adjectives, etc. Some languages gender everything, even words for objects that don't have strong cultural associations with masculinity or femininity. In France, for example, chairs are feminine and airplanes are masculine. This is a great illustration of how a word's grammatical gender has less to do with actual gender and more to do with having a set of rules that categorize and form agreements between words. In other words, grammatical gender is just a grammatical thing, not a gender thing. Unlike many other languages around the world, modern English actually has no grammatical gender. This may surprise some people, seeing as many English pronouns have strong gender associations. For example, two of the most common pronouns used to refer to people are she and he. And our society typically associates he with men and she with women. These associations, however, are purely a social and not grammatical one. Often because of these associations, though, pronouns are used as a form of gender expression for some people. If you find any of this interesting, I'm literally reading from my book. The script is my book, so that's just a nugget of information. You like this video? You like my book? Using the correct pronouns can help some people feel affirmed in their gender because they're being perceived and referred to in a way they feel represents them. This is why pronouns can be so important for some people. However, a person's pronouns can also have nothing to do with their gender. Not sure why a person might use pronouns unrelated to their gender? Hang tight, we'll unpack that soon. Now let's look at one of the most common gender-neutral pronouns, they. I'm going to do a whole video devoted to the word they. In that, we'll talk about how they can be used singularly and still be grammatically correct, and we'll also explore some other gender-neutral pronouns, some neopronouns. This is why I'm not going to talk about any of that now, but I'm excited for that video because it needs to exist. So like we mentioned before, some people use pronouns to express their gender and some don't. Here's Tori to elaborate on the latter a little bit and share her experience with pronouns.
When I think of my own gender, consistency is null. On some days I wear dresses and wonder if I'll ever surgically remove my breasts. On others I wear bow ties and wonder why, if womanhood feels so hellish, manhood doesn't feel like the heaven I once thought it would be. What remains the same in my conception of my gender is a sense of queerness, that is, strangeness, peculiarity, deviation from the norm. That is not to say that I believe gender queerness to be abnormal. In fact, I would argue that it is a very common experience. Gender queerness, to me, simply means an experience with gender that is queer, that creates a cognitive dissonance between one's intrinsic identity and the values and expectations of their society. For me, pronouns play no role in this self-conception. In fact, I find myself quite nonchalant about them precisely because they are indicators of a highly gendered society in which I feel I have no place. Thus, I find myself using she/her/hers pronouns not because it feels right, as is the case in many people's experiences, but simply because it is convenient. When most people see me, they will not ask about pronouns. They will call me a girl, and I, too often, will say nothing to the contrary. Why? It lessens the blow of the dissonance. It keeps me sane. In another conflicting sense, using she/her/hers pronouns allows me to plunge deeper into the dissonance, to confuse the rigidity of my culture even more by refusing to match my non-binary identity with non-binary pronouns. A person of any gender can assume any pronouns they wish, and in doing so myself I feel empowered and further detached from the standards of my society.
Tori wrote that blurb for my book, and I love listening to her thoughts on pronouns because she's so flippin' smart. As for me, I ID is genderqueer, And the pronouns I use, because you guys always ask me what pronouns I use. I don't know if it's because I cut my hair or if I kind of shifted my name on Twitter from Ashley to Ash or what, but all of you, there's just been a flood of what pronouns do you use, so I'll just address that. I don't have a preference, really. I think she, her, they, them are my favorite, but I don't like any one more than the other. No pronoun really causes me gender dysphoria or gender euphoria. I'd probably even be okay with he, him pronouns as long as I knew you were doing it in a respectful way, in a I want to validate Ashley's gender queerness way, not a douchey way. So yeah, I don't know why, and I'm not sure if a ton of other people feel this way. I know some other people feel this way, but I'm just really pronoun indifferent. The only things I don't like are, one, when people make fun of my gender and parody my pronouns. They say things like, oh, social justice warrior, the next thing you're gonna do is identify as a toaster, and your pronouns will be toast and toast self. Ugh. That's not cute. That's just disrespectful. So I don't like that. And then number two, this is a weird one, but I don't like when people think they misgender me by using the wrong pronoun and they make a huge deal about it. Since I'm pretty genderqueer, you can't really misgender me to begin with, and since I'm pronoun indifferent, you really can't use the wrong pronoun. Finley, be quiet! When it comes to me, you're probably not gonna mess up. But sometimes people think they mess up and they say, oh, Ashley, I mean Ash, I mean she, I mean he, I mean, whoa, not he, I mean they, I mean malfunction. That, like, makes me really uncomfortable. That turns me bright red and I just freeze. That is something I don't like. If you think you use the wrong pronouns for me, don't worry. I don't think you're a bad person or ignorant or anything like that. Perhaps just apologize quickly and move on. It's just not necessary to make a production of the apology. Like I said, I don't know why over-the-top apologies make me uncomfortable, but they do. Maybe it comes from a place of like internalized transphobia, of not wanting my gender to be a really big deal or ever be an inconvenience for others. Maybe? I'm not sure. What do you guys think is my deal with that? And do any of you feel that way too, ever? So that's the end of this video. Be sure to buy my book if you liked this. This script literally was my book. This script was my book. It was just giant script of my book. And I worked so hard on my book. And please buy my book. Please buy my book. Contest time. If you like this video and leave a comment saying you bought my book, don't lie, I'll figure it out. Somehow. But I will choose one of you randomly and I will give you a super secret, wonderful prize. It'll probably be lots of pictures of Fiddly. And a copy of my book, probably. So you can have two and give one to a friend. Okay, bye!